MG, how you doing, mate?
Hey, bro, we're back. I feel like I got to spend most of last week with you.
I know it was an awesome weekend.
From podcast, then we were at the airport, then we got to sleep together. Take that however way you want. And then the show on Sunday, which was awesome, wasn't it? But yeah, always feels good spending a weekend with my brother.
Yeah, like that was the biggest thing I was looking forward to. Like the weekend was awesome, but just hanging out with you because it's been a while since we've hung out. And we really miss Scotty too. And he hasn't been in the potty for a little bit of time, but we're working out timing and his schedule over there. And because it's like 11, 12 hours difference. So hopefully next week we have it all sorted and he'll be on the potty. But that means that the potty release date may be later in the week because we're
Yeah.
most likely going to be recording it on maybe like our Thursday night. So it's probably going to get released like a Friday morning. So, but anyways, we'll let everyone know, and it'd be good
And,
to have you
and
back for sure.
let's give Scotty a big shout out. Hopefully he listens to the app. Surely he would, but
He does.
he we all know how amazing he is and how professional and his skill level is obviously phenomenal. But Scotty got a gig basically at the rugby equivalent of say like a Collingwood or a Richmond Football Club there, heading up the exercise science department, which is fucking amazing, right? So no one deserves it more than him. He is so elite. And currently completing that thesis and doing his masters, it's going to give him access to like both the male and female teams of elite level athletes that he can use to conduct his research. So it couldn't have gone any better, man. I mean, I'm so happy for him. I miss him, so I would love him back here, but he's achieving amazing things. So
Yeah, I think the first potty that he comes back, he's just going to have to update us all about what's been going on because we haven't even had him since prior to the ICN Nationals.
yeah.
So he did the ICN Nationals, then he went to Italy, and then obviously settled into the UK. So we've got to get a full update of how life has been since then. So it'll be good to have him on.
He's definitely kicking goals, that's for sure.
Yeah, but over the weekend we we went to Sydney for the A&B Nationals DFAC World Titles, and we had a bit of a crew that came up with us. So obviously we flew on Saturday during the day, and we met Matty Papp there. He stayed in the hotel with us, in the apartment with us, and then that night we went over to see the girls. So Kim, Rom, and Ev, because they were all staying together. And we had a little bit of obviously a chat with them and a conversation with them. And we also had Candace with us too, which was awesome. She's always an amazing vibe to have. But yeah, it was absolutely amazing weekend. What are
We
your
all, we,
thoughts?
we we also watched Bridget in the pro show in Bali while we were there,
That's right.
which was
Yes.
awesome. So it was just a great bodybuilding weekend, and the show was great for us as coaches. All of our athletes did amazing. They all looked absolutely incredible. That fitness lineup was so phenomenal. Like the level of eliteness was insane, and for you and I, it's kind of sums up the end of the season, right? As coaches, even though we've got athletes in prep for 8, there is a bit of a feeling of like, oh, that's it, no more shows.
Yeah.
And it's a mixture, isn't it? It's a mixture of, it's going to be nice to get some weekends back, but when you run, 8 to 10 weeks straight of pretty much comps every weekend, it leaves a bit of a hole too, right?
Yeah, we basically ran comps for 2 months since the middle of September all the way through to now. It's crazy. And most of them were back-to-back weekends.
Definitely.
So it's been a massive season. I don't even think we've had time to really reflect. Like I was talking to a client the other day, and I'm like, I haven't even done show recap posts since June when I went to ICN in Korea.
Yeah, there you
I've had
go.
so many shows since then. I haven't even done posts and recaps, which I have to get onto, to be honest, because I think the team deserves it. The team deserves me to show their hard work and everything they achieve. So I definitely have that on my list of things to do to give everyone a recap and a shout out about how amazing the season's been for the team for sure.
Yeah, but yeah, it was a highlight. Like for me, it was the first time for a few things. Like I've never had two athletes in a pro show, the same pro show. So that was fun, and a little bit of a milestone for me, and especially like at the start of the season. If I just use like Fran as an example, we kind of made an assessment of her physique, and I said, this is where I think you can get to if we do this, and this. And the last show was the weekend, and we had ticked all those boxes, and it was kind of a nice feeling of like, hey, we did everything that we said that we were going to do, and it was a milestone for me because of what I just mentioned before. So it was a really, really nice way to finish the season.
Let's run through some of the divisions that we had our team in. So let's talk about sports first. I had the three. So I had Sarah, Rom, and Kim in sports. And then you also had Fran in that open, in the amateur lineup, and four absolutely amazing physiques. It was a great lineup. In the end, obviously, as we know, sports goes for a little bit more of a downsized, softer look compared to fitness. So Sarah from my team actually won the overall in that. And then Kim was second, Rom was third, and then Fran was fourth. Fran, obviously, for fitness, because she's already a fitness pro in A and B, and she looks absolutely amazing. So I think the way that was placed and how that went about was the way it should. And then in fitness amateur, because Fran was in the pro lineup, I had the same three again, and I had Kim win the overall in that, and then Rom get second, and then Sarah was third. So it was almost like a flip, which makes complete sense in how it should have went in that lineup. And then Kim obviously went into the pro lineup for fitness with Fran from your team, and then Ev from Scotty's team. And that was an epic lineup. Like, you had those three girls, which are top level, have pretty much placed very, very well, won pro cards, like Kim winning pro cards and overalls in ICN, Ev winning a pro card in every federation.
Didn't Kim win the pro show too?
Kim won the pro show at ICN for sports. So yeah, and then Fran obviously too, winning the overall at Ballarat, winning her A and B fitness pro card, and placing absolutely amazing in the ICN Nationals. So
she came second in her open at Nationals, so just missed the pro card of that one. Yeah,
crazy, absolutely crazy. So an elite lineup, a really elite lineup. And then the way that went is Ev got first place in that pro show, which was absolutely amazing and definitely deserved. And then you had Fran that was second, and then Kim that was third. So,
and then a quality fourth and fifth with Tasha, who's a great athlete as well. Yeah. Just taking back, obviously, what you like. I think what you and Sarah achieved in terms of physique. Like, I've known Sarah for a long time, and I can say that was, to me, the best presentation of her physique I've seen on stage. She looked amazing. I think you really nailed it, man, in terms of just bringing up muscularity as well, but keeping the condition on point. The midsection was on point. So you did a great job there, man. I think I said to you when she was on, I'm like, man, good job, congratulations. Before that even announced anything, as in how I thought she looked. And I said the same when Rom was out. I said, wow, she looks insane, man. I asked you, what was the weight difference since she won A and B Vic? I'm like, what's the weight difference? And you said, I think it was the same, right?
Roughly the same weight, yeah.
Roughly the same, but a much different look. I was asking you that while they were on stage.
Yeah, I remember.
So, clearly that indicates that I was really impressed with what I saw. So the overall presentation was amazing, and it was kind of fitting to end the season with what I think are some of the best physiques in terms of fitness in the country on that one stage at the one time.
Yeah, it was definitely an epic lineup. They really made them work. They gave them heaps of stage time. I don't know how many turns they did, but the crowd loved it. It was an epic lineup. I think one of the best fitness lineups I've seen this season. There's been some absolutely amazing fitness lineups. So that was fun. It was fun to end the season. You could just tell that all the girls were so happy for each other. Obviously they're competing against each other, but they're just so happy for each other to do so well. So it was definitely a great vibe and a great team environment. And then, whenever you have Candice around backstage, she's the best hype girl ever. Some of the girls had never met Candice, and they just absolutely fell in love with her, and I'm not surprised at all. So it was just a really, really good vibe. We had a lot of fun, and it was a great way to end the season.
Absolutely, man. I agree. And for me, having Matt in pro fitness, those that know Matt know how much of a great guy he is, but, he's worked so hard for that. And we'd kind of already won before we got to the pro show. First pro show was already a goal in itself. So he by far presented the best he's ever presented. I think you and me were doing his GTS session in the gym on the Saturday night, and he kind of did his abs and thigh pose, and he had some feathering in his quads, and he was like, oh my God, I've never had that in my life. So we kind of had already won, and, that competition was tough. Ethan, who I think pretty much won everything at ICN Nationals, and then his pro card came second. I thought Ethan might have been a bit stiff. I think maybe a little bit of a more gloss on the tan, and potentially it could have gone either way. But yeah, both phenomenal athletes, and they both deserve nothing but success.
Yeah, Ethan was an amazing season for him. I think he won a pro card in every single Fed.
Yep.
Pretty much. So yeah, he absolutely smashed it too. So a great way for him to end the season doing a pro lineup and a pro show. And then Fran looked amazing. I even said to you, that was the best condition I've ever seen her in. She looked absolutely crazy. Very impressive.
That was the gnarliest that we ever got.
Yeah.
I said to you, just to give people and paint a bit of a picture of the differences from, say, 2 weeks ago when we won, when she won the overall on her pro card, was we really hadn't done any cardio the whole prep.
Mhm.
So if you think about her, say 28-week prep, we use cardio probably 1 week out from the A and B show. And that was only 2 or 3 times. And then once we went to pro card, we did cardio every single day to the pro show. And I think we pulled off about 1.6. But I feel like we were still managed to retain all of her muscle. And it was, the best look by far that we've had. So, and we'll take that feedback and we'll take, what we learned from that. And, next time when we come back to stage, we may do things a little bit differently. And that's really what it's all about, right?
100%. So actually, let's talk about that because people might want to know, what did we do with our athletes when there was a 3-week gap between the ICN nationals and the A and B nationals? So I know for me with Sarah, I just kept pushing because I just wanted to get her leaner. So for her, it was just continue on with the plan, continue to diet, and just continue to keep pushing that conditioning. So that's what we did with her. With Rom, we actually gave back to the system and increased her food for a full week and just helped her recover. She actually ended up getting a little bit unwell. So it was like perfect timing that she was feeling a little bit off. We put food back in, we reduced steps back down, we just gave back to the system and then left it about another week and a half of just pushing again. And then obviously the carb up towards the end. And then Kim pretty much the same, gave back to the system for a little bit, probably not as long as what I did with Rom, and then just pushed all the way through to the end. And then she came in, I think it was a kilo or more lighter than ICN nationals.
Yeah.
What about for Matt? What did you end up doing for Matt?
Well, we sort of started bringing in some cardio sort of the last 4 to 6 weeks of Matt's prep where we did 2 20-minute sessions per week.
Mm-hmm.
Post his victory in New South Wales, we went hard. We did cardio 5 days a week.
Wow.
Which was the most same short intervals. We were only doing 20-minute bursts, but, with a heart rate target. And we got him down more than a kilo from his overall win as well. And we did the same with Fran. We went hard 5 days a week and managed to pull off 1.62. So we kind of felt like we had nothing to lose. We hadn't overused that tool the whole way through for 30 weeks. So we thought it was something that, we would get a good outcome from throwing it in now. Ultimately, as the coach, you got to think, how long is it going to be sustainable for? And what's the trade-off? If it goes too hard and you sacrifice some muscle tissue, is that going to be of detriment? Well, like, if you look at Matt's instance and knowing who was going to be in his lineup, he was already probably 15 kilos heavier.
Exactly.
So for him to come in 2 kilos sharper and maybe sacrifice 400 or 500 grams of lean tissue, for me, that was a trade-off worth doing. So that's why we made that play. So that's really what you got to think about is, what's the objective of what you're going to implement? And then what is the worst case scenario on the other side of it? And it just seemed like a risk worth taking, but it definitely worked. And was also trying to manage his energy levels too, right? So, when you're that dieted down, I think we managed to pull off 25 kilos over the 32 weeks, man.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Wow.
So we started Matt's prep early because we probably went a little too far. Mm-hmm. Which we knew about. So we probably pulled things 3 or 4 weeks early and then took some breaks rather than run the whole way through. But I think highest to lowest pre-carb up, I think we pulled off, 26, man.
Jeez, decent. That's a decent amount. Yeah.
It's a lot, right?
But now, so now knowing that and knowing where he fits within a division, would you be thinking that in his next off-season he doesn't need to get that heavy?
For sure, 1,000%. I suppose the thing to remember is, and people are like, wow, that's a lot. It is a lot. But we were always planning on focusing on physique, right? And anyone that knows Matt's physique knows his upper comes in sharp as way before his legs will come to the party. But knowing that he was going to be in board shorts until we made the decision to switch to fitness right at the end of the season, and anticipating having to go down so low. As soon as we made the switch to fitness and did well, it's like, okay, well, now we've got to get these legs a little bit tighter. So we did have to push a little further than we originally anticipated. Moving forward, we won't need to go that hard because size is not going to be the issue in that fitness lineup. It's now just going to be about coming in sharper and sharper and making some minor refinements. So let's say in his off season, we pushed up to 101 and I bought him on, and we got on stage at say 75. We probably won't need to really exceed 94 or 95 next time around.
No, wouldn't think so. No.
You know what I mean? So, and again, like I said earlier, guys, it's like you learn as you go, right? You pick things up about different athletes. Some athletes, if you look at me and as an example, for me to push to 96 is a massive battle. I think we got up to something like 850 grams of carbohydrates and I just couldn't break that sort of 95, 96 marker. And I said to Scott, I'm really, really struggling, right? So, everyone is different and we always talk about things being individualized, but equally, the longer you spend with someone and the longer a relationship you have as a coach with an athlete, the more you learn, and you take that into your next, your next off season, your next prep. I think the important thing is to understand that you're not always going to get everything perfectly right.
Mm-hmm.
And, the one thing that we did at the start was we allowed extra time.
Yeah.
In case we were off.
Yeah, totally.
And that proved to be fruitful at the end.
So now with those athletes, have you or will you be having a conversation of, okay, what's next for them? When should be the next season they should do? What are the gaps? What are the weaknesses that we need to improve on? Like, have you had those conversations yet?
Yeah, so I always do Zooms the week post comp,
Okay.
and we do a SWOT analysis of the physique. So like talk about, the points that were great, where potentially we were a little bit exposed. And then we'll go into, what's next? How much time do we truly need to improve or fix the areas that we think? And then kind of map out what that next show is. We don't necessarily need to pick the exact show or date, but pick the season and then kind of reverse engineer the plan and say, okay, well, let's think about this. If I've just stepped on stage and I am like, hey, I want to go again next year. I want to do season B. I had such a great season. I want to do season B. Well, as a coach, I'm like, well, once we get through this reverse diet, recovery diet for both those athletes, because, they've been dieting for a long time. So recovery, then into reverse, then slowly progressing into that off season. If you want to do season B next year, knowing that you're not going to have as much composition this time because you've just prepped, but still you're going to need something like 20 to 24 weeks. You've only got between now and April to improve. It's not enough time.
No.
It's not enough time. Equally, if we give a shit about your health, which we do, giving you some time where, you're in an environment where you have high energy availability for longer than 10 or 12 weeks is absolutely essential. And for me, I would just, for the most part, be saying we need to go further. I'd be saying, let's look at least B25.
Yeah. With me, I chat to everyone the week post-comp and we start to set a plan in place of what would be the next show, what things we need to improve on, how long that's going to take. And if we're talking about, someone that's in fitness, sports, or even the men's categories where they've got to put on a bit of muscle because there's some gaps in their physique, most of them are going to be doing 2025. All the conversation I've had so far is none of the competitors are doing 2024.
Yeah.
It's just not enough time. And once people have that show under their belt and they're like, okay, now I want to spend as much time as I need to be my absolute best, then it's an easier conversation to have to be like, okay, we need to take some more time. 2025 is probably going to be the best bet for you. And then we start picking a season. Is it A? Is it B? What do you have on in your life? Things like that. And we go from there.
I think once you understand that going into a 26-week prep is half a year gone, where you're basically not improving. Sure, you're looking different and you're improving from an aesthetic standpoint, but from a muscularity standpoint, you're probably not. That's a big chunk to lose. So I think for the most part, we all probably need to allow a little bit more time and not feel the need to get back on stage too quickly. We both see this, athletes that have literally gone back to back 4 or 5 years in a row. I don't think that those athletes are making the improvements that they could be.
Actually, I'm sure she won't mind me saying this, but Sarah was one of those athletes that did back-to-back seasons with a previous coach. And then when I brought her on, when I had that conversation, I said, we're not doing that. The only way I'm going to coach you is if we do an off season. That's the only way we're going to do it, because that's the only way you're going to improve your physique. And she stuck with it. And we upped her food and reduced her cardio, and it was completely different to what she's ever done in her life. And we got that result. She looked her absolute best she's ever looked. So sometimes biding your time and allowing your body to do the right things that it needs to improve is only going to make you a better athlete. I know it's hard because people get the itch and they want to jump back on stage again and they get FOMO. I totally get it. But you've got to do what's best for you if you want to be a competitive athlete.
Yeah, well said, man. Definitely. And I mean, I've said this multiple times over the last 80 episodes. In my early days, I spent way too much time, worrying about staying lean, wanting to always be lean and compete, that I missed years of good progression. So I just, as somebody who's been there, it would be stupid of me to let somebody else, especially someone that I coach, make the same mistake that I did. I'm older now and I've been through it. I would be recommending people to take more time to grow. Be patient with the process so that when you do come back, it is something improved. It is something that you're really, really proud of. And, if there was things that, you needed to address in your last comp and you've been able to address them, there's no better feeling than doing that.
Totally, 100%.
It takes time.
Yeah. I want to touch on a question that we got about stage present. Tips and tricks for competitors when it comes to stage presence. And this is in brackets to do with males, but we can cover it for females too. I think one of the most important thing with males is, I don't want to say posing is harder, but there's flexing involved, right? So compared to females, except for a figure where there's no flexing involved. So I think for males, the most important thing is to practice and practice your posing endurance, and also practice what it feels like to activate certain muscles so that you know whether you're turning them on and whether you're making yourself look the best you could possibly look. So for male competitors, I would definitely say practice, and practice the endurance of actually flexing and holding poses. Because the last thing we want is for you to be shaking or not being able to hold a pose or looking very, very uncomfortable on stage. It's definitely going to show. The next thing with guys is, and it might be a little bit unnatural for some, but is to keep a smile on your face and to make it look like it's a little bit effortless and like you're enjoying it. And then the next tip would be is, if you ever get moved, and this is for males and females, if you ever get moved around in lineups and maybe you're getting moved to a position on the line that you think is putting you in a worse placing, it may not be the case. So don't let it show on your face that you're like, oh, now I'm last place. Because we've seen people that have gotten moved to the end and they're the winners. So don't be fazed by anything. Make sure you keep a smile on your face. Make sure you look like you're kind of enjoying the process, even though you're probably gritting your teeth and thinking, oh my God, how much longer can I hold this? It's going to make it the biggest difference. You got any feedback on that, MG?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The only thing I'll add is this, and just being specific to males, practice is the most important thing, right? When you get on stage and the pressure hits you, you're going to revert to your lowest level of training, right? Because that's what pressure does. That's what anxiety does. I would say only 5% of the males that I've ever coached to stage they practice their posing, but only 5% actually practice the stage presence part. So they'll go through their routine front double and they'll never smile. And in their mind, they're just like, it's okay, because when I stand on stage, I'm going to smile. Why does no one practice the smiling bit as well? So that it's true, right? It's like they always practice, but like they're a serious face. And then when they step on stage and the nerves do hit, it's like, okay, now I'm going to bring on the smile. If you had practiced the whole 20 weeks with the smile, the flick, the flare, pretending that you're in front of the crowd the whole time, when you stand on and those lights hit you and everyone screams and you hear your name and your number, you're just going to do what you've always done, I promise you. So if that's been without a smile, it's going to be without a smile again. So my biggest piece is exactly what MT said, practice, but add the stage presence part to your practice as well. I feel like in the female divisions, they're taught that way. I feel like for the males sometimes, they don't turn on that smile until the day of the show is the first time they practice with a smile. You need to start practicing with it the whole way through.
Yeah, definitely. Good, really, really good point. On that, I want to move to another question that we got about FMG, which is the old WBFF. One of the questions was, do we have current clients that will be competing in it next year? And what do the physiques actually look like for that federation? So, and I want to take this question after we just spoke about stage presence, because it's a really big factor when it comes to a show like that. Yes, I do have clients lined up next year to go into FMG, so I'm super excited about that. The physiques. So the physiques themselves, and I'm just going to talk about the females. So for the physiques for bikini, they got a new one called Bikini Athletic, and then for fitness, are very similar to what you would expect across the natty feds. So, the bikini look for FMG is similar to the bikini look, say, for ICN or NBA or AMB. They probably like a little bit more of a rounder, muscular look and flow to the physique. So maybe not a smaller stature bikini athlete. But what I would say is, and I saw this firsthand when I went there on the weekend, is I saw people that were in ICN shows and other natty feds, NBA and AMB, in bikini, and that didn't place the best in those lineups. But at WBFF, actually one of them won their pro card. And it had more so to do with their stage presence. Like when that person walked out, I was like, oh, I've seen her the other week at ICN. She okay, this is interesting. And then when she came out in her stage presence, I was like, she's going to win this. I could not take my eyes off her. She looks absolutely amazing the way she's presenting herself. So I would say the physiques are similar to what you would expect to see a bikini athlete to look like, or a fitness athlete to look like. But it's more so how you're presenting that is probably one of the biggest factors. Because as I said, there's a look that maybe is not placing so well in ICN or NBA, but then when they go to FMG and they're presenting themselves the way they want to be presented over there, and it's a big factor when it comes to scoring, they're doing really, really well. So, you've got to think in ICN, NBA, etc., you're standing in a static pose and they are assessing your look and your physique. They're looking at every single part of your physique and judging it against someone else that's standing right next to you. Whereas in FMG, you can pose how you want to, and you can constantly move to hide your flaws. So therefore, you can hide any flaws that you have, but then also you can present yourself in a certain way that the judges just can't take their eyes off you. So when it comes to a federation like that, of course, you need to have the physique to match the category, but you need to have the stage presence to match that category too.
So similar, maybe a little bit more muscle across both divisions, but with a bigger emphasis on stage presence. Yeah. So like anyone that, I would always say this to everyone is like, if it's something that you've always been considering and you're prepping anyway, and you want to give it a go, I would say give it a go.
Yep. Go to shows
that's a big one. Actually, that's a good point. How many times have you had a consult with someone who wants to do a comp, has never even been to a competition?
Yeah, it happens a lot. And the first thing so the shows this season, make sure you go watch them. Let me know what you think. Have a look at how the stage is run, how the posing is run, how they move people around on stage, how the stage works. Try to pick winners. Try to pick what you think they're looking for and what they're rewarding, so that you get a good understanding on what to expect. So if you're a first timer, you definitely need to be spectating at a couple of shows before.
Sure.
That would be my preference. That would be my suggestion, my recommendation. Yeah. Even though we see some people that have never even been to a show and the first time they go is when they're actually competing. So, all right, let's move on to another one, and we'll keep talking about prep. So prep timeframes. Why do some people only do 12 to 16 week preps?
I've never really, I have had one person do a really, really short prep. And this is someone that came to me from a referral from another competitor who'd kind of already been living and breathing the lifestyle, but just hadn't committed to a show and was already almost stage ready.
Okay.
Other than that, and I think the main difference might be, if you're looking at, say, I just watched Derek Lunsford, Mr. Olympia, who won the Olympia. I just watched his starter prep, and he was 4 weeks in, and he was taking us through a day of eating. It was on YouTube, and he was 12 weeks out. So Mr. Olympia did a 16-week prep.
Mm-hmm.
So if you use that as the one end of the scale, I think for us, the clients that we coach, natural athletes in the federations that we coach in, the amount of time that's required to pull off, the amount of body fat that we like to aim for in a specific time frame, whilst being able to prioritize muscle preservation and also manage the athlete's fatigue levels, 12-week preps are just not possible. Mm-hmm. You're just not able to pull off the amount of fat required safely in a 12-week prep for 99% of the athletes that we coach.
Yeah.
I think, when there's access to other things like pharmacology, that scenario changes. Also, the level of composition at which you're starting your prep at will dictate how long you need to diet for. And we've touched on this in previous episodes as well. But I think you potentially are comparing yourself to somebody who may have access to pharmacology or was potentially starting their prep from a very, very lean composition already, because we just don't do those types of preps.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's very rare that I've had someone prep for that short time period. I think maybe there might have been one or two people that did that this season, and that's because they were already in a great body composition to start with, so they didn't have to lose as much. So we didn't need that length of time, and also they weren't the most muscular person, so I wanted to preserve as much muscle mass as possible. So therefore, they didn't need as long as prep as what maybe some other people needed.
Yeah. So I suppose to answer the question, does it happen? Yes. Is it common for us? No.
Yeah. But those people that I did do a short prep with, it won't be happening next time, because I'm going to make sure that in their off season, they put in the composition needed and the mass needed to be more competitive. And therefore, we'll need more time to prep to pull off some of that fat mass that we will be adding in their off season.
Well said.
Okay. A question for us. How many days a week do you guys train, and what is your split?
I'm surprised this has never come up before.
I know.
So, well, I would say both of us would be pretty similar, right? Because at the moment, Scotty handles all of our stuff, which we love. So I'm on a 5-day split. You are too?
Yep.
Yeah. So my structure at the moment is, at the moment it's a little bit different because I've got a broken foot. So it's kind of a little bit auto-regulated on my part because there's a lot that I can't do. But in a non-injured environment, I'm kind of like a push-pull legs, full body push, full body pull.
Yeah. Is your legs in between your push and pull?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like that split too. And just to give everyone a bit of an idea, on that full body day, it's probably like, so my full body push day, you could almost call it anterior full body, right? Because it's front of the body. And then on my full body pull day, you could call it posterior because it's more hamstrings, glutes, and back. And on my full body day, it's a half push day, half quad day.
That's how I try to explain to people when they ask me in the gym, oh, what day are you doing? If I'm going in there and I'm doing the full body push, I tell them I'm training the front half of my full body.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, yeah.
And then tomorrow I'm training the back half of my full body.
Yeah. And the idea around it, and the reason, like, an MT and I, we program this way a lot. We use multiple splits, but I like this structure because the amount of volume I'm trying to get into an athlete, say, across a week, it's nice to be able to split some of that leg volume up where I know, hey, I've got a big leg day, and then 3 days later I've got to go in, but I've only got hack squats and leg extensions, and then I'm doing chest and shoulders. I'm like, oh, cool. That's good. That's actually one of my favorite days because I love training legs, but sometimes a 90-minute leg session, I'm like, oh, I can't be bothered, right? We've all had those days. But on that EB day, on that full body day, that's probably one of my favorite sessions is my full body pull, my full body push, because I get to sort of sprinkle some legs, but then go hard at, either upper front or upper back.
Yeah. Because I train majority females only, I never really given that kind of split because there's obviously they've got to train a lot more shoulders, a lot more back, and a lot more glutes. So the split never really works that way. But I can see how for male athletes, it would work really, really well to do it that way.
Well, I use sort of two splits for the bulk of my female competitors, which is, most of my book as well, which is a double leg day. So push, pull, leg, full body. So, sorry, push, pull, leg, so 2 legs, but with a gap in between, and then a full body day, which is kind of like everything else that I'm trying to put extra attention into, which is typically like glutes, shoulders, back.
Yeah.
And then I do use that split as well with some female competitors, but typically it's my female competitors who are already more dominant in the lower half.
Okay. Yeah. So I run something similar. Like if a female athlete just needs to grow everywhere.
Get it.
I mean, and from like an aesthetic competitor standpoint, so they need bigger shoulders in their capping, they need bigger back width, more back detail, bigger glutes, bigger quads, because they're the kind of main areas that give you that X frame. Yeah. Then a split would be lower, upper, then a combination of some lower and upper in that final day. It won't be full body, but it's some of the lower and some of the upper.
Yeah,
that's a typical split for a female. But if someone needs more glutes and their upper body is developed, they've got big shoulders and big back, then it might be something like a glute ham, upper body, glute quad, upper body, then glute only. It might be something like that. Or glutes and quads, or glutes, hams, quads, a little bit of everything in that last day. So it'd be a really, really different split. If someone was the other way around, then it would just obviously be the opposite. It'd be like an upper day, a lower day, another upper day, a lower day, and then the 5th day will be another upper day. So it'd be 3 uppers, 2 lowers only.
Yeah. So it seems like the consistent message is like, if we're talking females for a second, is like 2 uppers, 2 lowers, and then a 5th day that targets what we need.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Unless it's got to be, that's for someone that's well-rounded and just needs to go everywhere. Yeah. If they're, dominant in the upper or the lower, then you obviously split it around. So it just goes to show that more frequency on the muscle groups that need more work.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how you would structure your programming.
Yeah.
That was a good question. It went into a different direction, but I think
it was good.
It helped.
Like I said, that's why when you asked that, I'm surprised that it's taken 80 episodes for someone to ask what our training split is.
Yeah. Actually, I always get this question too from females. Oh, there's not a lot of calves and bis and tris in the program. Yeah. Or direct chest work. Do you ever get that from a female?
Well, I had this conversation with someone this morning, one of my new athletes who's awesome competitor, and has never had calves in their program, just started with me. And I put a few sets in per week just for knee health and if you're going to continue to smash those legs and you're just completely neglecting your calves, potentially at some point you might run into a problem, right? So I have a small amount of volume in there for knee health, but certainly not enough that would match what she's doing in her shoulders, right?
Yeah.
Equally same, I think the only chest exercises are actually just incline movements that I think it's probably just incline dumbbells. There's nothing else, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't necessarily need a bikini girl to walk out there with the biggest upper chest insertions ever, right? So you just got to think about what your objective is. If you looked at I've got a client named Amy who's not a competitor, but is, a strength athlete, a marathon runner. She does a little bit more chest volume because we are trying to keep everything nice and strong.
Mhm.
But like from say a bikini or a fitness standpoint, maybe a little bit more in fitness, but yeah, certainly if you looked at one of my bikini athletes, they may only have, if you said, all right, let's look at what she's doing specifically for chest or upper chest, you might only find 3 or 4 sets a week.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. So, there's little to no calf work if it's not needed and it's not doesn't need to be developed because it's not a judging point, really, to be honest,
Sure.
for most of those competitors. Same with buys and tries. There's a little bit or hardly none because it's not needed. And then direct flat, bench press work, there's none in there at all. It's all incline or shoulder pressing, to be honest.
Yeah,
The only time I put any of those things that I mentioned in a program is if the client asks for it because they actually enjoy it and they want it in there.
for sure.
As I say, we spend our time and energy on the things that really, really matter at the moment. And if we develop everything that needs to be developed, then we have some spare time and spare volume in the training week, then we can add some of those things in. But we're going to concentrate on the most important stuff first.
Yeah. If it was my program, it would need 25 sets of calves and there would still be no growth.
I'll probably do the same, bro.
Oh, man, yours are better than mine. I've got an excuse now. I've got a broken foot, so I'm going to stick with that for as long as I can.
Yeah. Let's switch pace and let's go to a food question.
Yeah.
Thoughts on highly palatable foods. So no context whether that's off season, comp prep, but give me your thoughts on those kind of things.
Yeah, during prep, I'm not a fan at all. I like, simplistic. I'm going to say reasonably plain, because eating like that, although, over time and once you lose a fair amount of body fat, it's not going to help with hunger signaling. It's certainly not going to make it worse, right? As soon as you take something highly palatable, it's going to override that hunger signaling, and then it's going to come back with a vengeance.
Yeah.
And you're gonna want it really, really badly, and it's going to be hard to kind of stop that. So I think highly palatable foods have a place. I'm not saying that be a bodybuilder and don't enjoy and eat some yummy foods, but I think there's a time and a place for it. When is that time and a place? Well, I think if you've just competed, I think, waiting as long as you can to get through your recovery and your reverse, and then starting to bring those meals in slowly till you get to a point where, like MT said on last week's episode, once a week, maybe twice, peak off season, happy to go out and have a meal. And once that meal's done, you don't want anything else. You actually want to go back on plan straight after. So I think they do have a place, but I think you need to be smart about when you bring them in. And I think having them in preps, that's why, if you look at, say, just me, MT or Scott, we don't use cheat meals. Well, there's a reason we don't use cheat meals. It's not because we're trying to be the thieves of fun. It's because we actually think that they have potentially deleterious health effects.
Yes. Yeah.
Not health effects, but they can lead to things that potentially aren't going to be conducive with success for somebody who's trying to go through a prolonged deficit.
I think if you're in a phase within your bodybuilding career that you're going to be hungry, so comp prep or reverse phase, you should not be having highly palatable foods. When you're in a phase where you're not normally hungry, like an off season, then you can include them because it's not going to snowball into a binge or an overeating episode because you're just not hungry and you're just having it for fun or social or make things exciting. And we're saying highly palatable. You still have palatable food in your diet, right?
Yeah, we're meaning pizzas, burgers, like things that are moreish.
Putting sugar-free syrup over everything, trying to include, we call them like macro-friendly fun foods. Those things that maybe have some really good macros, but they're just way too tasty that you just one bite and you can't stop. You don't want to have that stuff around you when you're in prep. It's so funny. I just realized that I was looking in my pantry to do our thumbnail to get something because this is going to be the thumbnail, right? So I was having a look and I looked at the back of the pantry and I bought like a Macro Mike freaking hot cross bun mix that I bought in prep at the start of prep because my prep started in like
March
time period.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I'm going to buy this thing and then after comp, I'm going to have it. Man, it's in the back of my pantry. I just found it today.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, you'll have to make it and post so everyone can see.
Probably off. I've got to chuck it in the bin. That's what I mean by like hiding highly palatable food out of sight. And that was in the back of the pantry. So got to get rid of that one. I don't want it anymore.
I thought you might have found a new spatula that you bought ages ago that you were...
No, I still got the same spatch, mate. That thing's not gone anywhere.
So, completely off topic, but I picked you up on Saturday to go to the airport, right? And I was like, hey, do you mind if I just heat my meal before we go? It's like habit now. When I go into your house, I run straight upstairs. I needed to use your microwave anyway, but I just can't help but look at your pan and spatch every time I come to your house. And I don't know whether you're setting me up, but you always leave it out.
Yeah, because that's what I do. Like I use it, I wash it, I put it out, I put it back.
So like if So here, like we'll use it and then we'll wash and we put it in the cupboard, but yours is always out.
No.
So it's the first thing I go to.
Yeah, because so
Out.
the pan stays on the stove, just it stays there.
Yeah,
Like
the spatulas over there on the left, I know.
and the spatula's on the left in its little cradle on the left. Because the next morning I'm going to cook my eggs. Well, I'm going to take it back out of the cupboard, like just leave
I
it there.
get it. No, I totally get it. But it's just funny that now that's my first thing I do when I come to your house. I'm like, let's go set the spatula.
Yeah.
I want to see if you change it. I want to see if you make it.
One day I'll just fuck with you and just put like a different spatula out and just see if you notice.
Man, if you want to fuck with me, just put it away. That would fuck with me massively. The joys.
What do you eat for breakfast? I'm eggs through and through. I just always eggs.
Yeah, I've got two breakfasts. So one is I just do oats, protein, frozen blueberries, peanut butter, and then another one I do is yogurt with a bagel and jam.
Okay,
and I only rotate between two.
Maybe because I grew up having a warm breakfast.
Yeah.
So for me,
I do eggs or egg whites and eggs in my meal too. So
okay, for me it's like a warm coffee, warm breakfast, like warm food for breakfast. That's breakfast for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's normal. That's super normal. Hey,
Okay.
I just thought of something from the weekend which we didn't touch on earlier, but this podcast, it's our podcast, right? We can talk about whatever we want. Were you in the crowd when during Pro Men's Physique? There was I think there was about 6 or 7 of them. Anyway, really, really good lineup. But there was one athlete. Actually, I think he's a listener of ours. Great guy. I think his name's Giovanni, or he elite physique, great guy, but he had the sickest crowd you've ever heard. He might have had 50 people there, right?
Yeah.
And the vibe was crazy, right? And every time he hit a pose, the whole crowd would, as soon as he hit it, they'd go, ooh. And that was happening for 10, 15. They were like holding chairs up in the thing and like screaming for him. I've never seen like a crowd or a vibe like that at a bodybuilding show. It was fucking hilarious, man.
I remember because I was downstairs and I heard it.
Oh, you could hear it.
Yeah, I was downstairs.
They were holding chairs up in the air.
Yeah.
And literally every pose, and you got to think how many. So we've got a front double, side chest, side tricep, back double, abs and thighs, and they made them go around 10 times.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It was like 10, 15 minutes straight of just the loudest atmosphere. And it was all for this one athlete. Like, it's so cool.
Yeah, I think that's one thing about men's categories and bodybuilding is that there's always going to be a different crowd vibe compared to females, right?
Yeah.
Because they're hitting poses, it's about muscle, they're having fun, they go a bit crazy and they're cheering. Whereas for females, they're cheering, but it's just a bit of a different vibe. So it's always good to go to a bodybuilding show and actually be in the crowd when males are on stage because it's completely different.
Yeah, and like they were in control. They weren't doing anything silly. It was just a really nice vibe and a different vibe that I'd seen for ages versus your typical sort of cheering.
Yeah, I love it. I'm going to miss shows.
See, I told you.
I'm going to miss it. Let's go to this next question. Why does the body weight I sit at now post-comp look different to the same weight I was when I was dieting down? So you got to think when you're dieting down, you're depleted, you're flat, right? You probably got less food in the system, so therefore you're going to weigh less in the scale, and you've got less stored energy in the muscles, so therefore you're going to weigh less in the scale. And then when you're coming up, you're going to have more food in the system, therefore you're going to weigh a little bit more on the scale, and you're going to have probably fuller muscles. So the look's going to be different. One's going to be a flat, depleted, maybe softer, leaner look. One's going to be like a fuller, probably more blurry lines look, if that makes sense. So you got to think scale weight. There's a lot that's involved in scale weight. If you were to talk about composition, you're probably a different composition at the same weight. So if you were to take a body scan, you're actually probably a different body fat level and maybe muscle hydration level too. So yeah, you're going to look different because scale weight doesn't mean everything. Yeah.
It's also for the same reason you hear so many people say, man, I look way better 1 week after my show. It's like, yeah, because for a week you've been, overeating a little bit. You've achieved muscle glycogen saturation. You're fully topped up. Maybe you haven't quite spilled over yet, but you literally are topped up to the brim and you're actually 2 or 3 kilos heavier. So if you were 75 on the way down and you got to stage of 72, now you're 75, but it's the same composition you were at 72, just topped up to the max. You can see why the look would be different.
Yeah, if the day or two after the show, if you've gone back to, and let's just say your planned macros that you got to be on, and you brought food back up, and if you actually look better, like leaner, fuller, then that means that at your show you were flat. You
You won't
didn't
top
have
that.
enough in the system, right? But if you, a couple of days after the show, if you've been eating to the calorie amount you should be eating, and you look full but a little bit blurry, then you're spilled.
Yeah, which is the objective.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I know I just spoke to Rom, and she's like I look full, like I got the best pump in the world, but my lines are blurring out. I was like, you're just spilled. It means that for the show you're perfect.
That's good. That's good.
You did
Yeah.
everything we needed to do. Yeah,
And sometimes you get it spot on, and sometimes you miss it. And your food's got to come up a little bit more. But
yeah,
that's the whole point of having someone there to analyze the stats and make that decision.
yeah. I've got another question here about what could be the reason for feeling dizzy, weak, with cold sweats and nausea during a leg session, even with eating prior. Like if you've got those symptoms, I'm going to say the cold sweats, the nausea symptoms. Hopefully you're not sick thinking, but to feel a little bit dizzy and a little bit of nausea could be a couple of things. Could be too much caffeine, so you're over caffeinated, and therefore your blood pressure can drop. You can have it rise in a dip. I'd also say look at your hydration prior to the session, and even say look at your electrolytes prior to the session too. Like, have you had some sodium for the day, and those kind of things, because sodium's going to help with your blood flow, your blood pressure, shuttling carbohydrate into the muscle, getting muscle contraction. So you can have some of the symptoms that you recommend, that you're saying, if you're not appropriately hydrated, you haven't got the appropriate amount of electrolytes in your system, or if you're overly caffeinated.
Yeah, I think the biggest one, if you're training like hard as fuck, think about if you've ever been to a powerlifting meet, certainly a local powerlifting meet, there's a guy standing behind when someone's deadlifting, right? Because when you're coming up for that 1 RM, what happens is your blood pressure goes through the roof, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you put the bar down, and the first thing that happens, that blood pressure comes straight down. A lot of times people fall backwards. So that's why there's a spotter standing there.
Yeah.
So if you're someone that's training hard as fuck, for the same reason that happens, potentially you're doing a heavy set, your blood pressure rises, you put the weight down, your blood pressure drops really quickly, and you feel really dizzy.
Could be that too. Yeah, completely. Okay, another question about some sups. So I'm on green powders basically all year round. Is it okay for this sup, or should I take breaks from it?
Yeah, man, it's really hard without knowing so many things about you. But I would always say this, like, have a look at your diet first. Have a look at a day of eating. Have a look at, what you're taking in terms of serves of fruits and veggies. And my question would be like, why are you taking a green subs? You could literally be taking a green sub all year round, be getting ample micronutrient intake, vitamins, minerals from the food that you're eating, and literally be taking that green sub for no reason, and you're just having a really expensive week. But there's so many things we'd need to know specifically, like...
Yeah, I don't think you need to take breaks from things like that, because I'm assuming the green sup is just food, but in a powder format. So it's like saying, should I stop eating spinach? Like, no, it's okay. Like, it's all good. I don't think there's anything wrong with taking that supplement, but I'd just say what MG said is just see if you really, really need it. Maybe take a break from it and see if anything changes. See if things improve or get worse, and then know that, okay, maybe essentially you need it in, or you don't need it at all.
Well, hang on a second. Maeve just yelled something out. So my wife's a clinical nutritionist, got a degree in nutritional medicine. She's in the other room. She just yelled, "Hey, come in here." She doesn't want to come in. This is what I just got. Can I just read out her? Actually, MT, I'm going to show it on the screen for anyone who's watching on YouTube, and then MT can read it out. So this is coming from someone with a degree in nutritional medicine. Let's see if MT can read it. No, it's not coming up. I'm going to read it out loud. No, that's my one, the blue one. I'm going to read it. Ready?
You read it.
Green supplement equals dumb. Do you want to give us a little bit more detail? No, should I?
No, she's not.
We'll touch on that in the next episode.
Yeah. Maybe we need Meave on the podcast once.
Oh, we should get Meave on the podcast. Like me, you know what? Meave and Scott together, because obviously, they both come from like highly educated backgrounds. Me and you would just be sitting on the side, like,
yeah, just like, I'll be taking notes. I'll be like, yeah, that's a good one. That's a good
one. Let's get Meave on the podcast. That's actually a good idea.
We should do that for sure. Talking about that, opinion on paid mentors for coaches. So paying someone to mentor you.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I've got like nothing but positive feedback to give about it. If you think about it, every coach I've ever had in my career was, I paid them for coaching, but for me it was a mentorship. Like we've said this before, like find someone that you see that you think is doing, what you want to be doing, or leading the field or leading the industry in some way, shape or form, and try and get as much as you can off that person. the more time you spend with them, the more you're just going to level up. So I think, there are a lot of mentorships or paid mentorships out there. I think, is that person that's offering that mentorship doing everything that you want to be doing? If so, it's worth investigating. It's easy for anyone to say that they're going to provide you a mentorship, but are they actually living and breathing what it is that they're preaching to you about? That's the thing that I think you really need to get down to, because if they're just, putting information out there, but they're not actually doing it themselves, which is easy to do, right? It's easy to appear that way. I think, have a look at, the nuts and bolts of what they're actually doing themselves personally. And then, I've got no issues with mentorships. I think they're very, very good and very, very useful, done with the right person.
Yeah, I agree. As you said, find someone that's doing something that you want to do and want to be like, and then get mentored from that person. We see a lot of mentorship programs that have some amazing social media presence and marketing, but we've had people that have gone to those things and come out the back end of them and be like, it's not what I expected. So really do your research and contact someone that you want to be mentored from that maybe is not doing mentorship programs, but maybe they will mentor you, they will coach you. So yeah, I think it's definitely worth the money spent for sure. All right, let's finish off on the last one. How do you guys balance out bodybuilding?
Look, for us, it's a little bit easier because we work in it.
Mm-hmm.
I think for the most part, for most people, if you don't have a job that's within the industry, it is a little bit harder to balance. But I think you and I both looked at something this morning, which was pretty interesting, which was like, the objective is to have like a balanced life, but there's going to be periods where you're completely unbalanced. I think it was Lane Norton, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
He basically said like your whole life should have some balance, which means you'll have periods of doing things that are not specific to a goal. And then you're going to have periods of your life that are very specific to a goal where you're going to have no balance whatsoever. But I said the accumulation of all of those over years equals a balanced life. But if you've got a big goal, you're not going to be able to have balance. No. I think even in his thing, he said, like, it doesn't have to be bodybuilding related, but if you want to go and do a degree, you're not going to be out every Friday and Saturday night partying because you've got study to do. If you want to compete in a bodybuilding competition, you're not going to be able to go to every social function and eat and drink everything everyone else is because the goal's too big. But that doesn't mean that has to be your goal your whole entire life. And there'll be periods where you do have balance and periods where you don't have balance, and that's okay.
Yeah. With every goal or endeavor that you have in life, there's always going to be sacrifice, and you're going to have to shift your time and energy and effort over to something else, and something else is going to suffer. And we're spoken about this in prep, where people around you and your environment around you need to understand that too and support that, because that's going to be really, really important. But, I had a conversation with a client actually yesterday, I think it was, because she looked up to some other people in my team. And I said, I see those girls and, I compare myself to them because they're so amazing and they look a certain way and they're in the off season too. And I don't know if I can look like that. And I said, but hang on, those girls you're comparing to have come from a past that was completely opposite to what they look like right now. Both of them were unhealthy and overweight, and now they look absolutely amazing. It took them time to get to where they are right now. So I can't say that it's been easy for them, right? But also too, the two people that you're comparing against are now online coaches and PTs, that they live this life. So it's easier for them to maintain what they've got because they can put a lot more focus on it. Whereas this person I was talking to, she has like a 9-to-5, right? And it's going to be way more difficult to try to fit in everything that is bodybuilding related within her life. So, and also too is those two people that she's comparing to, they also have, all their friends and family are within that too, whereas this other person doesn't. So she's got resistance there from all the people around her when she wants to live this bodybuilding or fitness lifestyle. So sometimes be really, really careful about balance and who you're comparing to, because not all things are created equal.
Yeah. And also, just be prepared that if you want to do something massive and achieve something big, not having balance for a bit's okay too.
Yeah.
Not going to be forever.
Yeah, exactly. All right. I think we covered a fair bit of questions. We had Maeve's input there too, which we would love to get some more of.
We will get Maeve back. We will get Maeve back.
She's opened up a can of worms now. You tell her. She
has. Well, there's you know what? We should do like a nutrition myths podcast with Maeve.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be so good.
We better get her before she gets deep into that third trimester. So we want to get her.
Baby brain kicks in. Yeah.
Still got some energy left. Yeah.
Sounds like a plan. All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening. We appreciate it. We appreciate everyone that we met over the weekend too that came up to us. It was amazing to meet you. We're going to miss meeting people at shows because we're not going to be able to see people. But I think you and I spoke about doing another gym catch up sometime this year, like we did last year for the potty.
One before Christmas.
One more before Christmas. So we'll keep everyone posted about doing a big gym catch up where whoever's free can come down at a certain time at a certain gym to do a training session to meet some other like-minded people. So we'll let you know details about that very, very soon.
Look forward to it. Thanks, guys. Appreciate everyone's support.
Take care, guys. See ya.